A little while ago, I did a haunted first-hand history of the USS Yorktown CV-10, which is permanently docked at Patriots Point in Charleston, South Carolina. I have to tell you, though, the Yorktown wasn't the first Essex-class aircraft carrier I've been on. No, my love of these floating citadels started nearly 20 years earlier on a distant shore, when I first boarded her sister ship, the USS Hornet CV-12. The USS Hornet, like the Yorktown, is permadocked and likewise acts as a living history museum all the way across the U.S. on its Pacific coast. Permanently docked in Alameda, California, I was privileged in my younger baby ghost hunting days of being able to overnight investigate on the Hornet not once, but twice, a year or two apart. It was on this second trip that something extraordinary happened, and where the photos you see sliding across your screen come from. It was October of 2006, and my parents and I were taking a rather grand vacation in the San Francisco Bay Area. It was the first time we'd ever taken such a family trip, and part of that trip involved meeting up with a few other ghost hunting groups from Washington State to do a joint cooperative investigation of the USS Hornet. I was running Seattle Ghost Hunters at the time, and the event was being hosted by WSPIR, or WSPIR, which stood for Washington State Paranormal Investigation and Research. WSPIR was joined by a second team, a PART, or Auburn Paranormal Activities Research Team, and finally me and mine, SGH, or the Seattle Ghost Hunters. We wandered that aircraft carrier all night, encountered cold spots, recorded audio and video, took multitude of still photos, and even utilized some thermal imaging camera equipment provided by WSPIR. We experienced cold spots and some phantom noises, but the real show began late in the night when we all bedded down in one of the bunk areas. The bunks were 8 to a rack, and the rack I chose was occupied by no one on the bottom bunks and by only one other girl who sadly I have forgotten her name, and which team she was with. Who, like me, she chose a top bunk, kitty corner, to mine. Where I was out on the aisle, she was back by the metal bulkhead. I had my head pointed to the aisle, and she had her head pointed at the bulkhead, so we were essentially sleeping feet to feet and offset by one bunk. I hope this is making sense. It was not a restful night. Multiple times I was shaken awake by what I thought was the other girl tossing and turning in her sleep. That is, until the bunk shook violently, and she and I both looked up and down at one another and at once realized neither one of us had moved. I confess, I was cranky, and I shot her a dirty look, and she likewise shot me a dirty and annoyed look, and we both laid back down at once. The next morning, when our host from the museum staff came to rouse us, neither one of us were rested, and as we packed up, both of us froze and looked at each other when the host asked us, "So, did anyone get shook in your bunk last night?" We were too stunned to speak, and simply froze mid-motion and stared at each other. The host laughed and said, "I thought so. They like to do that. It's one of the things we hear about a lot after one of these." To say I was shook was an understatement, and I do believe that I mean that both figuratively and literally, in the sense that was exactly what the girl and I had several others in our party, including my mother and stepfather, experienced as we tried to sleep. So there you have it, my little strangelings. A bunch of photos of the USS Hornet, and even a few of me as a wee little baby strangeling myself. If you ever have the opportunity to visit both the Hornet and the Yorktown, I highly recommend it. I feel blessed to not only have visited both, but to bring you such chilling and thrilling experiences from both. One as an absolute history nerd, with the first-hand experiences the veteran from the Yorktown told me, and the experiences I felt and experienced from a spectral veteran on the Hornet. Until next time, my little strangelings, happy hauntings.